Welcome to WYCD Wicked. That stands for What You Can Do. Going a tad early today, looks like. Got an interview. But time is a factor, so I will not be able to be on in the evening. And there's stuff I just got to get to today. Have a viewer suggestion. David Feldman talking about healthcare. I'm excited for this one. And, of course, what you can do is a layup. Very easy. Very excited to talk about that. Brian Tyler Cohen talking about a big W for the DOJ. Cannot wait to see that one either. Midas Touch talking about Trump SPAC clownery resulting in the loss of support from MAGA. Acid Reflux making its way onto the stream. And I was reminded in an earlier video that I actually said in the course of the video something we can do with Donald Trump, and yet I didn't recommend it. I have no idea why. If you ever need a reminder that your old pal Jake's just a bit of a dummy, there's case in point. So I'm going to highlight that. I'm going to make fun of the dummy that failed to note the thing we can do, and then I'm going to show you what we can do. Because, folks, we have an opportunity to take Donald Trump's golf clubs away. I just love that idea. I'm very excited about that. So I'm hoping y'all will join me in signing a petition with Donald Trump. Ooh, boy. Can't wait. Let's jump into some of the news of the day. I'd like to start, actually, with Brian Tyler Cohen and Glenn Kirshner talking about a big win that the DOJ... There we go. A big win that the DOJ just had in regards to Trump's buffoonery. Here we go. All right, here we go.
Watching the legal breakdown. So, Glenn, the Justice Department just secured a big win in front of a federal judge for the first time, arguing that it has evidence that Trump may have committed a crime in the classified documents case. Can you talk about what happened?
Yeah, this is really kind of a blockbuster development, and one that is really bad for Donald Trump. Chief Judge Beryl Howell, who has supervisory authority over all grand jury matters in Washington, D.C. So that includes Jack Smith's grand jury investigation of the insurrection and Jack Smith's investigation of the documents crimes at Mar-a-Lago. One of Donald Trump's attorneys, Evan Corcoran, a former federal prosecutor with whom I used to work, I actually had a case in common with Evan many years ago. Jack Smith tried to put him before the grand jury, which in and of itself is really unusual. Generally, prosecutors don't subpoena the attorney who represents the target of the grand jury's investigation, because that attorney obviously and ordinarily would have an attorney-client privilege, so he or she could decline to testify. But Jack Smith said, you know what? We have reason to believe that Donald Trump used his lawyer, Evan Corcoran, in furtherance of committing crimes. And if the prosecution can prove that to the judge's satisfaction, well, then the attorney-client privilege evaporates. The attorney can't invoke it. And that is precisely what has happened. Chief Judge Beryl Howell concluded there was enough evidence that Donald Trump misled, deceived, lied to his lawyer, Evan Corcoran, and that is precisely what Chief Judge Beryl Howell found, that Donald Trump misled his lawyer, and that was in furtherance of obstructing justice. We'll circle back to that in a minute.
Do you notice the pattern here? Right? Donald Trump sees lawyers as henchmen. I mean, he sees everybody that works for him as henchmen, but he sees lawyers as people who are qualified to do the dirty work. And unfortunately, I mean, he's been correct so far. Who was that attorney, died in 1986. Worked for his father. It's killing me. Anyway, that was the guy he grew up with as his idea of what a lawyer does. And he treats all of his lawyers like that. He has that expectation out of them. My point being, if you want to track Trump criminality, you only have to go from lawyer to lawyer to lawyer to lawyer. Just watch what his lawyers do, and you will know who the next person. Just watch who his lawyers are, and you will know who the next person in the DOJ crosshairs will be. Because if you agree to be Donald Trump's attorney, you are apparently also agreeing to commit crimes. Or at least you're going into it with the knowledge, unless you are blind, if you're in the legal profession, that he's going to ask you to do shady things. There's a reason there's a joke going around that MAGA stands for Make Attorneys Get Attorneys. This is very much a modus operandi of Donald Trump.
So now it looks like Evan Corcoran is going to be forced to go into the grand jury and do what?
Another one.
Testify about and against, incriminate Donald Trump, his own client, soon to be former client. And let me just say this. There's some really interesting parallels that have developed, that have emerged. Because up in New York, in DA Alvin Bragg's prosecution of the Stormy Daniels hush money payments, you have what? One of Donald Trump's former lawyers, Michael Cohen, testifying against him in the grand jury, incriminating him. Now down in DC, what do we have? One of Donald Trump's lawyers about to testify in the grand jury against him and incriminate him. That's where the similarities, though, between these two circumstances end. Because Mike,
there is the broad, there's the broader similarity, which is putting attorneys in a position where they have to commit crimes in addition to defending them. That really is Trump's go-to move. And it's fascinating to watch. I have no idea how he is able to get anyone to agree to represent him. I honestly don't. Because I would have understood, even up to a couple years ago, being willing to represent this guy, if only for the fame. But it's pure infamy now. It's pure infamy. There is no way to represent Donald Trump without getting fired by Donald Trump and not wind up yourself eventually having to answer to justice. It's crazy.
Michael Cohen, I think we all recognize, is kind of damaged goods as a witness. Now, not irretrievably so. Michael Cohen was a co-conspirator with Donald Trump. So, of course, he's damaged goods. He committed the crime with Donald Trump, at Donald Trump's direction, and for the benefit of Donald Trump. But he is something of a credibility challenge as a witness against Donald Trump. But now when we move back down to D.C., Donald Trump's lawyer, Evan Corcoran, a former federal prosecutor, was misled, was lied to by Donald Trump. And the result is, the judge said, it looks like Donald Trump obstructed justice by lying to his lawyer and getting his lawyer to lie to the government, lie to the federal agents, and say, no, my client tells me there are no more classified documents at Mar-a-Lago. And what did we learn? Well, when the FBI went in and searched Mar-a-Lago, pursuant to a judicially authorized search warrant, there were classified documents in Donald Trump's desk drawers. So the fact that his lawyer, Evan Corcoran, a former federal prosecutor, may now be in a position to testify against Donald Trump and incriminate him is really blockbuster. And
I'm sure they'll talk about it. Oh, thumbnail right there. I'm sure they'll talk about it. But let's just be clear. Corcoran had his underling sign for that. He did not sign for it. To me, that speaks of knowledge of guilt and understanding that something shady was going on because he didn't want to get his hands on it. And his underling very cleverly said, I have been told by my boss that there are no more documents, and so I'll sign to that. Smart gal. Shouldn't be working for Trump. She'd be a lot smarter if she wasn't working for Trump, but a smart gal. And I don't think that Corcoran is as unwitting as he will claim to be. But I understand the point Kirshner is making here. He's saying for a jury, this is less of a concern than Cohen would be.
There are at least two crimes that this gives rise to. One is obstructing justice because
Boom.
you acted contrary
Again.
to the grand jury subpoena requiring you to give all of those classified documents back. And the other is the crime of lying to the federal government, what we call a 1001 crime, because it's found in the U.S. Code at 18 United States Code 1001, false statements to a government official. Coincidentally, 1001 is probably about the number of times Donald Trump lies to his lawyers every day.
Now, I was going to ask why we haven't seen Corcoran resign from Trump's team by now, but I recognize now that the Trump team is trying to appeal this. So what is the likelihood that they'll be successful in this appeal? And the appeal would be basically on Judge Howell's claim that the crime fraud exception applies in this case, and so Corcoran isn't protected by attorney-client privilege. What's the likelihood that the Trump team will be successful here? And also, what's the political makeup of that appeals bench?
I just want to pause for a moment and say this is an awesome time to be alive. Think about Glenn Kirshner, for example. I've seen that guy on MSNBC a baker's dozen times over the last couple of months. On CNN, I've seen multiple channels I have seen him on. And we get to see extended clips of him, a legal expert, breaking this stuff down every day if we want. Every day. I admit I even go a little too hard maybe with the Brian Tyler Cohen and what have you. I just love that we exist in an era where this is feasible. You don't need an entire network and a whole building full of staff running things. You can have a guy and a camera. And that means legal experts like this are available. It's just cool, man. It's very cool.
Yeah, so it looks like Donald Trump's defense team will be appealing Judge Howell's ruling that Evan Corcoran must go in and testify about and against Donald Trump. That is now in front of three judges on the appellate court in D.C. All three of those judges, coincidentally, were appointed by Democrats, I believe 2 by Biden and 1 by Obama. You know, I usually hate to sort of throw that into the mix, but in this day and age, particularly when you have, Trump appointed judges, many of whom were rated not qualified to serve as federal judges by the American Bar Association, the times we live in involve us always asking, who appointed this judge?
Just as a quick aside, is there a world in which,
Okay, well, there's the downside to the times we live in. Technology, great. Politics, ooh, boy, they're getting dangerous. Hopefully, though, the fever is about to break. We're on indictment watch, people. For the first time ever, as bad as it got, for the first time ever in America's history, a criminal president, of which we have had many before, a criminal president may be held accountable. Inshallah.
let's say Judge Howell's ruling is confirmed by this 3-judge panel in the appeals court. Is there a world in which the Trump team can appeal it further?
There is a world in which they can seek review in the Supreme Court. All bets are off because this is such uncharted territory. All bets are off with respect to whether the Supreme Court would accept review of this really interesting issue. But here's the thing, at its core, it's not that unusual an issue. unfortunately, we frequently have times where the target of the grand jury investigation is using his or her lawyer to help the target commit crimes. And so we go about this exercise of trying to pierce the attorney-client privilege and have the lawyer testify against the client. But so the issue doesn't present any big constitutional question for the Supreme Court to take up. But of course, there is intense interest in this because it involves a former president. So, will some of Donald Trump's defenders on the Supreme Court or his, ideological buddies up there, will they decide to accept review and perhaps try to, throw a little help Donald Trump's way? I mean, I even hate to say that, but these are the times we're living in.
Yeah.
If I had to bet my $1, my betting limit, not a high roller, I would say that the Supreme Court is not likely to accept review of this case because they know exactly what's going on here on the legal front. And when a client enlists a lawyer, either wittingly or unwittingly in his crimes, well, I'm sorry, that lawyer has to testify.
Okay.
Encouraging.
Now, with that said, what can prosecutors expect to learn from Corcoran? If you were probing him, what would be the most valuable information that you'd seek from him?
So really interestingly, right now, it looks like there's a battle being fought over whether the prosecutors, Jack Smith's team, should be permitted to get its hands on notes, documents, and recordings. Lordy, it looks like there are more tapes that Evan Corcoran has in his possession. Now, because that's...
At some point, someone is going to release an audiobook, which they just consist of recordings of Trump confessing to crimes or arranging crimes. As I say that, I realize I might release a podcast that's just those recordings with me offering commentary over them. Bizarre how often this guy is caught on tape and yet is still not in prison. Good Lord, come on, DOJ.
Being reported out, we don't know about the substance of them yet. It sounds like these notes, these documents, these recordings are going to be relevant to what it is Donald Trump told Evan Corcoran before Evan Corcoran prepared a certification to the federal government saying, nope, Donald Trump has given over all the classified documents, which we now know to be false. So I think what is of the most interest is not only Evan Corcoran's testimony, but what the documents and the tapes say that might support Evan Corcoran's testimony. Because, somebody testifying is important, but corroborating their testimony with notes, documents, and audio recordings is perhaps even more important.
Then this all seems
really fascinating stuff. I'm intrigued. What can you do about it? This one's so easy, folks. You don't have to do anything. You already did it. The Department of Justice would not be pursuing any case at all against Donald Trump if public pressure hadn't been there. You did it already. By showing interest, by being vocal about your interest in justice being pursued, the Department of Justice is actually doing their job. It's amazing to see. It's wonderful to see, and you should be proud that happened in your time. If you're alive on Earth at this moment, this is your time, and this is the first time in the country's history, in the history of the United States of America, that a president who broke the law is being held responsible for it. You should be proud. Watch this. Enjoy the suffering of a bad person. And rest a little bit easier knowing that justice is creeping in. Bit by bit, justice is creeping into the United States again. Love to see it. Laura says, "Hello, somebody." I love the call out there. Hell yes to Sister Nina. Ooh, and we've got. I'm gonna try to say this correctly. Mendoza from Rhode Island. All right. Well, hello. You are, to my knowledge, the second viewer we have from Rhode Island. Delighted to have you. Would love to know what I'm doing to get plays in Rhode Island so I can do it everywhere else as well. Let me treat y'all then to a little treat from the Midas touch. So Donald Trump is a strong presence in many online business communities. You know, the crypto crowd, those type of places. Very popular there. His SPAC, which is a type of business organization that I just barely understand, has gotten into all sorts of trouble. Midas Touch does a fantastic summary of A, what a SPAC is, and B, why he screwed it up. But it boils down to this. It would appear that this is yet another business entity that Donald Trump started so that it could be funded by Russians as a money laundering front. Here's the details, starring Midas Touch, because Ben Meiselas is Knock 'em Out Pete in this channel.
I'm Ben Meiselas from the Midas Touch Network. Donald Trump's SPAC, Digital World Acquisition Company, is crashing spectacularly as we predicted it would when it was first launched. And now we've learned that the CEO of the SPAC, Digital World Acquisition Company, Patrick Orlando, has been terminated by the board of directors from Digital World Acquisition Company, the SPAC, after it came out that the SPAC may have set up a money laundering scheme whereby individuals connected directly to Vladimir Putin funneled in approximately $8 million through a Caribbean bank, a bank called Paxum on the Caribbean island of Dominica, which bailed out Trump media in 2021.
Now, in days past, this wouldn't be old news. This broke late last week, I believe. Maybe early this week. It broke a couple days ago. What's interesting to me is where he goes with this in a moment. It's how the online community is reacting to it. This is new, how the online community is reacting to it. And it has bigger implications that I think even Knock 'em Out Pete here talks about. And if you're not aware, on this channel, when somebody does a fantastic job sticking it to whoever needs it stuck to, they get a nickname like Joe Biden has with Dark Brandon. Ben Meiselas' nickname, Knock 'em Out Pete. He's about to knock him out. Here it is.
Trump media in 2021, and then another payment of $6 million for a total of $8 million in early 2022 as Trump media was about to completely crash. We're learning this from the recent 8K SEC filing from Digital World Acquisitions Corp. And here is what it says in item 5.02, departure of directors or certain officers. On March 19th, 2023, the board of directors of Digital World Acquisition Corp., a Delaware corporation, terminated Patrick Orlando from his position as chairman and chief executive officer of the company. Mr. Orlando remains a director of the company. Well, that will still create a lot of liability and risk. In connection with Mr. Orlando's departure as chief executive officer, the board appointed Eric Swider as interim chief executive officer. Mr. Swider, a director of the company, was previously chair of the company's audit committee and a member of the company's compensation committee. He remains a director of the company, but has resigned from all subcommittee positions in connection.
I have no idea how this guy stays on with that being the case, but all right. I would say not a way I would have gone, but none of this. None of this is a way I would have gone were I Donald Trump. Jesus Christ.
Connection with his appointment as the interim chief, blah, 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 blah. And it goes on to just give this guy Eric Swider's background and biography. But this was announced also in a press release that was made public. And so this is big news, folks. I mean, we've been reporting about all of the failures of the SPAC Digital World Acquisition Company and Trump Media, all of the investigations that it's under. One of the key things, one of the main investigations it's under is improper communications between the SPAC, Digital World Acquisition Company, and Trump Media before the SPAC was even constituted and announced.
Well, he's going to explain it. To sum up what he's about to say, I suppose, a SPAC cannot have pre-existing communications about how they are going to invest before they're formed. It's supposed to be a group that does investments or decides on its investments after it's raised the money it's going to use to invest. The reason for this, and this I don't think he says, the reason for this is because otherwise it's a different entity and therefore subject to different rules. So it sounds like there was some tomfoolery behind the scenes saying, well, let's not put this on paper necessarily, but here's what you're going to do once you raise this money.
You had these conversations between the SPAC, which is a blank check publicly traded company, and a target company, in this case, Trump Media. If those discussions predate the SPAC, that's unlawful. So the SEC was already investigating that. The DOJ was already investigating that. There were also investigations into insider trading or potential insider trading that was taking place. And then we reported here on the Midas Touch Network that there was a DOJ money laundering investigation out of the Southern District of New York because Patrick Orlando coordinated this loan for Trump Media. I think he also paid himself money in coordinating this loan, which was very obvious to many people, a money laundering scheme directly linked to Russian oligarchs with very close links to Vladimir Putin, routed through Paxum Bank in the Dominica. This is from The Guardian and from a Reddit post that kind of explains Orlando's involvement as well. Federal investigators examined Trump Media for possible money laundering, sources say. And it went on to basically say how, this is what someone said on the Digital World Acquisition Company Reddit. The dude, Patrick Orlando, gave away Digital World Acquisition Company money as a loan with zero loan conditions to a mystery offshore recipient. He then padded the loan with an additional $240,000 for himself. The CFO of Digital World Acquisition Company, who resigned because his books were cooked, found out paperwork was never even written up for any loan. This, quote, loan doesn't even have any way for the recipient to make payments. Digital World
To be clear, when you do a loan like that, a loan, that's a way to disguise a payment. And you'll note, Trump gets a lot of loans and gives a lot of loans that have no specific repayment date, no terms around them that loans would normally have. In other words, it's money laundering. It's money laundering. Shockingly, in the past, he hasn't really been called out on this. But he made the mistake of becoming president and being so bad at it that the world actually cares what the president does now. And so now we are seeing his dirty dealings come to light.
Acquisition Company
Also, the fact that he uses his social media company to do stochastic terrorism also makes it of concern to the general public. Oh, yeah, and launder money for the Ruskies. Good God.
Investors were warned that it was a money laundering scam from the beginning. They were complete assholes in their responses. I expect them to continue being complete assholes as I continue to remind them that this was all an effing scam.
So this is what I was talking about at the top of this. The people tearing into Trump here are normally an extraordinarily pro-Trump crowd, like an unreasonably pro-Trump crowd. The fact that they're now just saying, "Oh my God, this guy, what a dingbat," is delightful, and it's a great sign that his core group of followers is leaving. You're going to start seeing MAGA folks getting separated into more and more categories. And that will become necessary because people will need to find the language to explain why one group and then another group and then another group is jumping ship. In other words, at the beginning of the voyage, you could easily call them all passengers on the Titanic. But pretty soon, we're going to have to be more specific and say, there's children, there's women, there's the elderly, there's the rich, there's the poor, so on and so forth. Ooh, bad time to be Donald J. Trump.
And it goes on to cite that the first $2 million of the loan was sourced. This is the loan that went through the Caribbean island of Dominica from a shady bank called Paxum Bank. It was sourced by Patrick Orlando just days before Christmas 2021, when Trump media's financial situation was becoming increasingly acute. Orlando later charged $240,000 as a finder's fee for securing this loan that was routed through Russian oligarchs through Paxum Bank. For the loan to Trump media, according to an invoice billed through his brokerage firm and Toro Securities LLC. Even at that stage, there was some concern about the origin of the payment, given the fact that it was being routed through an offshore bank, and Orlando declined to provide any further information about the lender, telling Trump media associates that the lender was extremely private. Nonetheless, Don Jr. and Donald Trump willingly took this money to inject capital into Trump media. Think about all the other issues with Trump media as well. Like, they failed to pay bills. One of their top vendors they owed $2 million to. They didn't get the trademark to the name. Truth Social, that was rejected by the trademark office. There's all these DOJ and SEC investigations. You have this perfect mix of criminality and incompetence that has come to define the Trump organization. Oh, and then this. Because they're so greedy, they tried to take stock away from one of their key executives, even though Trump would get basically 90% of the ownership of the combined company, if indeed the SPAC was able to merge with Trump Media to form a publicly traded company, which at this point will almost certainly not happen. I mean, it's still potential that it could happen, but I don't see a merger ever taking place. This is going to be a complete and utter disaster for investors, that's for sure. But it has all of these elements of just a complete Trumpian utter failure, right? As most presidents leave office, it's a pretty easy thing to kind of, write a book or do certain things that are productive. Donald Trump basically ran this thing right into the ground.
Absolutely, like a Greek tragedy, in that you know exactly how the downfall will come about because it's telegraphed from the beginning. His greed, his selfishness, his cruelty from the jump, it's been crystal clear. Of course he's not going to stop. The wild thing is, there's been no evidence in his thus far long life to suggest that he would ever face consequences. So there's no reason why he should be concerned about the law. Except for the little fact that there are indeed laws on the books, and he has been breaking them. This is another one, and we're doing two off the top where you don't have to do anything. The DOJ is on it. There's no reason. I'm shocked that this is the case, but there's no reason to believe they're dragging their feet. Jack Smith, to his credit, has been doing a great job with the documents, and the investigation into this SPAC appears to be, at the very least, in the cards. But there is no indication as of yet that duty is being that anyone is derelict in their duty. I'll keep watching it. I'll let you know if we do need to light a fire. But enjoy the popcorn right now, folks, because that man just keeps digging himself deeper. He wants to do the job of decent folks for us. I'm fine with that. Let's read some viewer comments here. Stephen Stanley says, I'm listening from Montreal, transplanted Californian. I like your show because your takes are obviously your own. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. And delighted to have someone from Montreal listening, and a Californian at that. Catherine Wolf, good to see you. Rump mentor Roy Cohen, thank you. That is the guy I was thinking of. Yes, Roy Cohen has been, he put in Trump's mind what a lawyer is. And unfortunately, Roy Cohen is a straight-up criminal. Wendy Evans says, love the Midas team too. My daughter's American, so send me the petition. Delighted. Okay. It's Stephen Stanley says it's one too many hamburgers. Cohen calls him Bagel Boy. I don't know why. Does anyone? I don't know what's up with that. I do remember Cohen saying that before. Let's talk about that petition real quick. So here's your old pal Jake from a couple days back talking about Trump stealing our tchotchkes. Hard to do much with that in terms of what you can do. Just remember to vote in primaries. We don't need... This stuff is funny to talk about, but can you just imagine where the world would be if we hadn't just wasted multiple years of American existence being run by a clown who steals tchotchkes? Expensive tchotchkes, I guess, but tchotchkes. Okay. Mildly useful. But let's look at specifically which ones he took.
Returned after he left office. But there are still two items that are missing, including a $7,000 set of golf clubs from Japan and what is described as a...
Wait a minute. Okay. Two items are missing. It's the golf clubs and a giant portrait of Trump.
larger-than-life-sized painting of Donald Trump commissioned by the president of El Salvador.
Who do you reckon? In the Trump crew didn't return their stuff? The $7,000 golf clubs and the larger-than-life sized painting of that buffoon. So why do I bring that up again? Because during that stream, I said that what makes them the American peoples what makes them belong to the government, and by the way, that means you and me, is that if we wanted, we could all get together and sign a petition to say what we wanted to do with them. We could do that. Why don't we? They haven't become Trump's just because he stole them. Let me be clear. I don't think this petition is necessarily going to make him give them back, but it's going to be, the bigger it gets, the more embarrassing it will be. If it gets 5 signatures, for example, it will be circulated in the homepage of change.org. In fact, let me show you. Let me show you what page I'm talking about. It'll be circulated at 5 signatures and more likely to be featured in the and more likely to appear in the featured recommendations of change.org. Ooh, one moment. Properties. And then here's the petition. Neat. Yeah, this petition right here. Christ. If we can get this thing to just 5 signatures, it'll be in the featured recommendations. If we can get it to 10 signatures, it'll stay in the featured recommendations. If we can get 100, maybe 150, maybe 200 people to say, yeah, you know what? I want those golf clubs put in a museum. We could get reporters asking about this. We could get a little piece at the end of a news show. We could get it put on the fun trivia parts of smaller news shows. We could build momentum on this thing, essentially to embarrass this guy for stealing our stuff. Let's not forget, the golf clubs this guy has been using are not his. They are ours. A gift to an American president is not really a gift to an American president. It's a gift to the American people. Now, it's true that oftentimes what the government will do is allow the politician who received a gift to fill out some paperwork and take the gift with them as a memento. It's a gift the government actually is giving to the politician, not the foreign leader. The reason it is done that way is because specifically then, it's not a gift from a foreign leader. It's something the U.S. government has said this person may have. Well, Trump didn't do that. Trump didn't ask us via the government to give him those golf clubs. He just took them. We should demand them back. I have put together a petition. I'm asking you to sign it. Links in the description at the very bottom. If you click on that link, it'll take you to that page. You can sign the petition. If we can get just 4 more signatures, it will be in featured recommendations. I have used all my algorithm tricks so that post is more likely when it is in featured recommendations to stay there. Let's keep this going. Let's get it as big as we can. Let's just see. Let's take a whack. It doesn't cost us anything but a few minutes of our time, and it has an opportunity to really highlight for America that this guy stole our golf clubs. I think that'd be fun. If you think that would be fun too, and just a wee bit hilarious, sign the petition. All right, we got one more here. We got a viewer recommendation. So thank you, John McDonough. There is a YouTube channel called David Feldman. starring, and this might come as a shock, David Feldman. He's a little more terse than I might normally recommend, but by God, does he have a good point about health care. Let's have a listen to what David Feldman said about the U.S. healthcare system. And while I don't agree with what he says about the voters necessarily, I do agree with everything that he says about the people that run the for-profit healthcare system.
Government isn't the problem, it's the solution. Government isn't the problem, it's the solution. In 1980, Ronald Reagan came to Washington declaring, government isn't the solution, it's the problem. Well, we gave it 43 years, and now we see what happens when you shrink government, idolize the rich, and believe the braying wolves repeating the lie that corporations are more efficient, the lie that corporations can do things better and cheaper than government.
Preach, brother. I'll tell you why they can't right now. They need to include profit. The government doesn't need to have a profit. That profit motive means they need, as in the corporations, need to take a chunk out of whatever they produce away from the people that could use that product. And that right there means it will never be more efficient than the government equivalent. I'm not even suggesting that everything be government this or that, but he's just factually correct that if you're talking about efficiency, government will be superior to a private corporation the larger scale you go.
It is a lie. I just went to the DMV in Manhattan. It was as pleasant as the post office, and I'm not being sarcastic. I love going to the post office. I love going to the DMV because it works, and I love to see my government work. And no matter how hard Republicans attempt to strip government of its funding, government still works. That's why I want government-run healthcare. When I was at the DMV last week, I kept thinking, if only these people handled my paperwork and my healthcare. Think of your experience, America. Think of your experience at the post office, the DMV. Think of the Veterans Administration. Compare those experiences to what you have to put up with from Aetna, United Healthcare, Blue Cross, and all those other serial killers. And I mean that. They are serial killers. Who do you want making life and death decisions about your health, about the health of your loved ones? Who do you want? If you think corporations can deliver health care better than the government can, I want you to listen to me. If you think that, you're ignorant. You are ignorant. If you think the current for-profit healthcare system is superior to government-run healthcare, you think that because you can't recognize Canada on a map of Canada. You're stupid. You don't read. Your head is filled with banana pudding. And most importantly, sorry, you're worthless, and so is your opinion.
Okay, so this is where I disagree strongly with Feldman, although I agree with where he ends up regarding what to do, how to structure our healthcare system. You have to understand what an echo chamber people have been in. All of us have been in, as a matter of fact. We have been told by Republicans and Democrats that business is efficient. Many of us for our entire lives. So I don't think it's fair to call people stupid for believing these lies. But the fact is they are lies. And we are starting to wake up to that now. But I do think it's too far to say that the people themselves are stupid. They just need an opportunity to hear the reality, which he is going to provide after he gets over this bit of sass.
And quite frankly, I'm almost at a point where I almost feel you deserve the outcomes that a for-profit healthcare system inflicts upon you.
I'm glad he said almost.
I'm almost there. Almost. I still forgive your ignorance. But trust me, if you think corporations can deliver better healthcare than the government, you are in better healthcare than the government.
Oof.
Still in the Democratic Party's platform, and I'm a Democrat. A public option is what Obama initially wanted with Obamacare, but the health insurance companies wouldn't allow it.
This is such a good point he makes about Obamacare, because what it was pitched as is not what it wound up being, and it's the reason it could have more or less fixed the majority of problems with our healthcare. But the fact that we're truly living in an oligarchy where rich and powerful people get more say in our government than regular folks. In fact, I dare say that we are just about at a point where they are a part of our government because of the amount of influence they've been allowed to have. If you can donate an infinite amount of money to a political campaign, you're the funding arm of the government then. And yeah, they put their foot down and said, no, I don't like that. I don't like that public option. The reason for that being, and I'm not sure if he goes into this, but here it is in one sentence. Corporations couldn't compete with a public option. So having a public option would have meant that private health care was a thing that only the ultra-rich engaged in, because everybody else wouldn't be dumb enough to choose an inferior product. It's that simple.
Even was up for debate. The public option is not free health care. It's government-run health insurance. It's a benefit that would compete with privately run health insurance companies. That's what the public option is. The public option is you could get your insurance from murderers like United Healthcare, who answer to nobody, or you could get your health benefit, your health insurance from the government, which answers to you. If you don't know which is better, you're a moron. Well, why did the health insurance companies kill the public option before Obama even had a chance to take it before the House and Senate? Why? They told him and Pelosi, they said it was unfair. They said, we can't compete with the government. They literally said that. And why couldn't the poor, murderous health insurance companies compete with our nasty government? Because health insurance companies mark up health care at least 25%, at least. I'm being kind.
Yeah, he's being very kind. Case in point, look at insulin. They were selling it for several. I mean, it was manufactured for $10, and they were selling it for $130 a pop. Insane the amount of extortion. And by the way, when he calls them murderous, that I don't have any critique of. That is accurate. People died because they couldn't afford insulin. Yet these manufacturers and the places whose job it was to supply it to people knew people would die if they raised the prices, and they raised them anyway. Not because they couldn't afford to make it if they didn't raise it, because they could. Because they could raise it. Because no one stopped them. No one said, we won't let you allow people to die. We didn't say that. We failed to do that as a country. Hurts to hear, but it is true. Medicare for all needs to be on our lips every time we talk to a politician about health care. Every single time. This is not something that should be privatized. Just like we stopped having fire departments be privatized. Just like we stopped having police be privatized. Just like we never even considered privatizing the military. There are some services that we agree that we all need. And once you know that everybody requires a service, it shouldn't be privatized anymore. If it's required, and it's required by all, that's when it's the government's job to do it. This is one such service. Almost every other country in the world that is in our economic weight class. No, I take that back. Every other country in the world, there was just a study that was done on this, that is in our economic weight class, has not just a better healthcare system than we do, a much better healthcare system than we do. The top 11 richest countries in the world were measured. And the reason that list had to be 11 instead of 10 was because the United States was 11th in all categories. Quality of service, cost of service, every category. Efficiency, every single category. Efficiency is where we did the best, by the way. Until you took into account that that was only for the people that could pay for the best treatment. Because once you took them out of the equation, which I'll give you a hint, was not most Americans. Once you took them out of the equation, we went right back to being last. It is truly an international embarrassment.
Pigs who should rot in hell. Medicare has practically no markup. Boom. And a public option, a health insurance plan offered by our government, well, it's going to be cheaper because our government doesn't pay $20 million to its CEO, and it doesn't spend billions on stock buybacks. It's going to be cheaper, and it's going to be better, and it's going to be more efficient. That is why Aetna and United Healthcare can't compete with the government. Now, a public option is not government-run healthcare. It's government-run health insurance. Let me ask you, you have parents who are on Medicare. You've tried Medicaid. What would you rather have, government-run health insurance or private, for-profit health insurance? What do you think the end result, the life and death result, is going to be for a government-run health insurance company versus a corporate-run health insurance company? If you think you're going to live better and longer through for-profit private health insurance, you're an idiot.
Jesus, Feldman. Take about 20% off there. Two things. First, if you have any questions on the Medicare for All pitch, that is one I'm intimately familiar with. But yes, what it breaks down to is government health insurance as opposed to government running the hospitals. But why is it functionally the same thing? It's just about price. That's it. You would pay next to nothing. Like for an actual trip to the hospital, to the doctor, whatever, you'd pay next to nothing. Because it would already be paid for via taxes. And by the way, if you do it the way progressives want to do it, not even your taxes. Jeff Bezos pays for your health care. As it should be. You should pay for that and a hell of a lot more. Why does it lower the price so much. It's something called single payer healthcare. If there's one person buying it, they have a real strong ability to negotiate the price. Now, in a Medicare for all system, you could, in theory, have other insurance companies out there. And that would be something that maybe rich people buy. Maybe they have unique needs. Maybe they want to insure very specific things. But the vast majority of us, by default, would just be on Medicare if there was Medicare for all. And that would allow the government, through Medicare, to negotiate for realistic prices for treatment. And they would be footing the bill. It is Bernie Sanders' solution, and I think it's a fantastic one. Also, thing number 2. Tomorrow are Friday Peace Talks. That's where we invite folks from all over the political spectrum to come in and offer up their pieces of media that they would like to view. And then we critique it, just like with this. We'll do Tucker Carlson. We'll do Sean Hannity. Doesn't matter. The idea being that we all join the same reality as far as news goes. I tell you this now because, please leave it in the comments if you have an idea of what we can do to attract some right-wingers to the stream on Friday. A place I could post that would attract folks. Off the top of my dome, I'm not entirely sure. Possibly, it's just going to be good old-fashioned tagging the YouTube video correctly that'll do it. But if you've got a specific channel in mind that we might be able to, your old pal Jake might be able to pop in and say, hey, come on down to Friday Peace Talks. Let me know. Also, if you've got somebody who's well into the right wing and you'd like them to maybe not be, invite them to Friday Peace Talks. It's guns down. We're not being cruel. We're not heckling. We have rules for politeness that the host follows as much as anybody else. So invite them down. We'd love to have them. Friday Peace Talks, that's at 9 p.m. All right, let's let Mr. Feldman finish here.
I still believe in democracy and that everybody should vote, but people like you make me question that.
Jesus.
I don't know much, but I can assure you, if you think for-profit health care is better than government-run health care, this I am as sure as today is March 8th, 2023. I am absolutely certain that if you believe for-profit health care is better than government health care, you should be, you're a moron. You're
Jesus.
a moron. And you should be reminded every day that you are a worthless moron until you finally come around.
David Feldman. Good Lord. All right, hopefully he goes back and goes back against the insurance folks.
Public option. Well, it's still in the Democratic Party platform, and it would be cheaper and more efficient. And the privately run health insurance companies are still spending millions lobbying against it, playing the victim. If only they were. With my hands. If I could be alone with the CEO of United Healthcare. He will say, you can't give the people a public option. That's unfair to United Healthcare. We can't compete. Yeah, the evil government, right? They can't do anything right. That's what these people try to convince us. The government can't do anything right except bail these golems out when they go belly up. You know, the government can't do anything right until they.
Oof. There we are. Yeah. I mean, by and large, I agree with the guy. I do think I've become a lot more sympathetic to the voters as I look at the information they're getting. Just like that guy that attacked the FBI with the nail gun and wound up himself eating dirt, unfortunately. Look at the information he consumed. It was all Fox craziness. It was Newsmax. It was stuff telling him that the FBI was a corrupt organization. I believe those news outlets are responsible for murder. Truly. Similarly, I believe that these healthcare companies, these health insurance providers, are responsible for the deaths of Americans, the unnecessary deaths of Americans. And I think we have got to make an effort, certainly, to convert people. But frankly, there's enough of us now voting blue. There's enough of us now who get what's going on with these health insurance companies that I might have to take need out of that last statement. It would be easier if we swayed them to the side of Medicare for all, single payer health care situation. But if we vote in primaries and get genuine lefties in the Democratic Party, and if we come out in force in 2024, we get the House, the Senate, and the presidency, we could make that happen. I am convinced that Joe Biden, in the latter half of his presidency, when he's no longer concerned with winning re-election using the old strategy of pleasing, 25% of Republicans and maybe 35% of Democrats. If he's no longer concerned about that and he's just concerned about legacy, I think he'll have one look at Obamacare and say, that was close, but Joe's going to do it better. Hey, Jack. That was terrible, Joe Biden. But I believe he would genuinely see that as his legacy. Healthcare for all. I think we could certainly make that happen. And if we have a blue enough House and a blue enough Senate, I know for sure he's not going to veto a Medicare for all bill. But it requires voting in primaries. Link in the description. Go as far left as you can. We could live in an America that genuinely has a health insurance. Good Lord. We could live in America that genuinely has a healthcare industry that benefits Americans. I know it sounds crazy, but it's possible. You just have to vote for it. Have a look at some of these comments. The NHS says Wendy Evans is loved more than religion in the UK. Being afraid of being is a being afraid of being ill is a terrible burden on one's psyche. Yeah, 100%. It really is, man. And being poor in the U.S. is lethal. It's just lethal. Be warned about the NHS, by the way. The conservatives are doing everything they can in the UK to sabotage it. Don't let them, because there's something beautiful over there, and it would be a shame if it broke. But the conservatives there do the same thing conservatives here do. They sabotage government so that they can say government doesn't work. And they rely on people not paying attention. So pay attention and shout it out when they are doing evil. Laura says, I understand his anger. If you've watched a loved one die or sicken when medical help was available, you will have available to you a deep well of grief and anger. Agreed. But I don't think his messaging will win people over. Yeah. I understand his anger, and I even think anger is useful, but it has to be strategic. You have to strike, and you have to mean it, but you have to strike at those who deserve it. And it's not the lied to that are the problem. It's the liars. Fortunately, in the age of the internet, it's a hell of a lot easier to expose them. And people lately have got a taste for, as a viewer pointed out in a wonderful way, fox meat. I think we're just beginning to be on an upward trend. I think we are just entering into an era. It's still going to be grim for a while. It's going to be real ugly for a while, but we are entering into an era where justice will be demanded. And I'm excited. Well, I hope y'all enjoyed today. If you did, please leave a like. Consider subscribing if you haven't already. I certainly hope you'll join us at 9 p.m. tomorrow for Friday Peace Talks. If you got a clip you think we should watch, bring it. It's all viewer suggestion if we can. I will blind watch these things and give my honest critique. We'll go back and forth with friendly debate. It has been a bunch of fun. Each time we've tried it in all of its versions. I'm looking forward to it. However, I'm going to scram for now. This has been WYCD Wicked. That stands for What You Can Do. My name's Jake. I'll see you next time.